Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that the weekend treated you well. I hope the sun is shining, the birds are singing. Hope the wind is at your back. Got a great show for you today. The legendary, the one and only Nicky Clarke.
Yes.
He's charting a course through the thrilling cosmos of AI at the intersection of leadership and artificial intelligence on a mission to architect futures that harmonize technology with human rights and biome resilience, drawing from the interconnectedness of classical and quantum AI with a hypergraph mindset inspired by 1960s modern mathematics. Nicky sees profound interdependencies in technology, society, and our environments. His writings and forthcoming book offer a blueprint.
Hey, I love you. They, them pronouns is the key to my royalty and the earthbound nature of our common universes that I'll share more about.
Break it down, man. Break it down.
It's very important. Yeah. So everything is identity, everybody. It's all politics, especially now with the mass media. You know, Marshall McLuhan will tell you the media is the massage. We massage each other's brains and our tissues with our dreams, right? And then this is the art of the possible, which is the politics, which is art versus art. That's what reality is, folks. There's only one thing. It's the dance. We have bosonic representation within us. We are the rainbow warriors. We cry and suffer like the light suffers when it absorbs from that which it went through but did not get absorbed fully by. It is the rainbow spectrum of what light is all the possible directions it chose not to take. The complete universe of unknown knowns. We got the known unknowns all under our belt. It's called the computability world. It's meta-computable. If you can compute it with a formula, then we know it. And what is that? It's called the Ruliad. Right now, brilliantest minds of the world are circling around this math called hypergraph. My friend Einstein, who I didn't personally know, but I believe is a queer icon. I truly believe he was a lover of bows in the most deepest platonic sense, minimally, for certain, in the development of quantum vacuum fluctuations and all of that, fundamental aspect of what is now seen as the quantum foam in this one-dimensional concept of string theory around virtual particles and the probabilistic urgency that they have to emerge. So when you think about this probabilistic urgency to be your information carrier, which is what happens when the one-dimensional space transmits energy, right? Everything is within the thermodynamic envelope in this universe of the known unknowns. That's the second law. There's a law. There's a first and a second, and you can understand there is only real laws, and thermodynamics is the only ones you need to care about. The cultural laws all are an effort to help us as a species grow together in our affiliated epistemal trust networks of familial and chosen familial organizations of people that ultimately align around heuristics, practices, and build their own sets of biases through their generations and eons. And so what happens is that there's actually a new thing I discovered, and it was so obvious that I was like, why don't I think about this? And I'm like, holy shit, I've got to prove this out because this is too obvious. It's like, come on. And it actually binds East and West philosophy. It's actually the basis of all religions. And now I've been an omnist for years. And an omnist is the path that I took, which was like similar to my queerness. It was like a 180-degree turn from this binary to this fullness. So it's like saying, hey, I get there's a spectrum. I get there might be a 1 and a 2, but because I'm here and I'm seeing a 1 and a 2, there's more than just a 1 and a 2. Everything has got this trinary reality. So when you think about what is real and what is reality, and I had a book that I'm working on that's like this nonfiction, massive tome. I call it more like an encyclopedia of reality. And I got a lot of contributors that are super serious scientists, naturalists, mathematicians, cognitive behavior scientists. I mean, I don't want to get into the list. Long acknowledgements list, lots of citations, facts, math. Okay, so that's the basis of the book. I have a book that's going to introduce all of this as a science fiction kind of transhumanist vision of the future, all meta-manifested Nicky's dreams. And then I'm going to reverse back into time because I have to. That's what the future will call for. Everybody's going to have to get, reprogrammed by this hypergraph, this cultural ruliad is what I coined. As soon as I saw TEDx talk from Wolfram, I was like, cultural ruliad. That makes all the sense. Boom! I had a hypergraph mindset. It was theosophic math ecstasy. I had a moment, and then so what happened in my personal life? I grew up. I was born in 76 of 2 mainframe programmers. They already had 5 kids that were my mom's stepkids. And she was like a really hyper perfectionist, narcissistic user, kind of passing abuse down I don't want to get into the history, but there's a long history, as there always is. And the only way you can cut it off is to literally cut it off. And so she hasn't seen my son. He's 12 since he was 3. And he's the most well-adjusted, zero problem child you will ever see. And so I learned that you have to stop the madness. And there's only one way. It's like zero emotional entrainment. And entrainment, I'll tell you more about in a minute or two, because that's the fundamental. That's the fundamental thing that we're going to learn on this call, is about entrainment, because we're in training here. Even outside of time, this is recorded. Somebody's going to watch this. They're going to train when they seek to understand. Everything is a hermeneutical effort to understand. Intelligence is always seeking to understand and balance equilibria within a thermodynamic envelope. That's just pure inorganic intelligence. That's how it works. And it works because of the rainbow of the symphony of the universe is constantly interpolating and superimposing rhythms and tones. And these are shapes within shapes, inside of shapes, growing in a manifold omnidirectionally is what reality is. I can show you pictures. I can explain it 1,000 ways. I am going to. That's my personal mission, is to free people with the truth. Theosophy through math, through linguistics and etymology. Etymology is the foundation of all language. Language is a biosemiotic effort that we make constantly to make sense of shit. We make sense of things based on our purpose, which is a teleodynamic arrangement of things. We arrange things in an ontology in our mind. The ontology people are the masters of the universe. The ontology people secretly encode the large language models with how they think and what their reality constructs are. When you ask a large language model now to put a picture of the future, guess what kind of future you see? White fucking people. It's bullshit. It's so not pluralistic, mutualistic, symbiotic. It's this sick transhumanist humanism. It's anti-Earth. And I only came to realize this in the last week, because I was an anti-Earth Martian sci-fi evangelical atheist Satanist. Not a joke. It's not a joke. I was a preteen before drugs, people. I just love the art of it. I love to be able to manipulate people. People are just dumb. They believe shit. It's easy to fuck with their heads. It's so easy. They're so gullible. They crave leadership. They crave to be submitted to something greater. And you learn that through reading. And I read like all the sci-fi and all the fantasy, because I was abused from conception. My mom was a coke head and cigarettes and all the shit and alcohol and partied, and I was born into and yelling and violence. All the neighbors were like, I don't like going to that house. They're always yelling. I mean, like, fuck you means I love you in Italian is what they used to tell me, you know? And I grew up with this violence all around me. And so I was the youngest. I was really doted upon by my mom, but her cat was an evil, narcissistic cat, would like cut her. Like it was a lot of like this fusion of dynamic personalities, which led me towards an imagination land and reading. And so I read all the books, all the Asimov, all the Hubbard, all the L. Ron Hubbard, all of them, all of the Piers Anthony. It's like total fantasy stuff. And one of my favorites is The Swiftly Tilting Planet, which has got the whole concept of a tesseract, which has got a lot of really good string theory physics in it. And there was a great Disney movie, A Wrinkle in Time, fantastic movie, highly recommended. And I just watched another movie, Raya and the Last Dragon, last night. That even had an acousto-vibratory ending where everything was this swirling spiral, just like the picture of my reality. Look at these fucking Frizzon. Frizzon is real. Frizzon is a full-bodied intelligence response. Your biomes, you're not one thing, people. We're macroorganisms. There's a plural there for a reason. Because you've got billions of biomes. There's sentiences within. If you smoke enough DMT or do enough acid in a fucking deprivation tank, you have to get through this fact where you will think they're a dolphin like John Lilly and go fucking crazy. Don't go crazy, people. The id will not kill you because you intermediate it. Like oxygen intermediates hydrogen, you give yourself more power because of your super ego. That's habits, that's ethics, morality, values. There's an ontology of all that shit. If you don't know that, it's because you've been told that, and that's what you live by. Somebody else's. It's called structural governance. That's how shit happens, man. It's all white supremacy and patriarchy coming at us all the fucking time. Violence is great. Don't you remember the ice ages, people? That's how we had to get hard. We had to make metal. We worship crystals. We blew it up. We fucking threw crystals on the fire and watched that shit glow. All those colors you see in a fucking fireworks. That's from crystals, people. We were digging mines. There was a huge industry 2.5 million fucking years ago, mining for rare flint rocks. and colored pigments because of imagination and the fire and the shadow. I've written so much on this just this morning. Everything is a shadow game, dudes. Your mind is a shadow game. You came from the ocean. You saw the sparkling shadows at and the ocean floor. You saw the flash of fish. You went toward it. That's response receptivity. Everything that flashes and sparkles in that's what a quantum fucking virtual particle is. It's a response receptive flashing urgency to reveal itself as a solution. And so here's where the math comes in, math heads. I learned and this is all about words, right? This is about treating you with the word. The word is fucking keywords. They're called keystone words. You know what a keystone is, right? Like we're building a linking thing. Right. We want to make a liminal threshold to walk through of understanding as epistemal trusting friends here. This is what the group is about. I'm intense. I'm talking intense because I love you. I love you. I want you to fucking hear this shit with the intensity of my purpose and passion. Because at the end of the day, epistemal trust is what it's all about. Do you trust that I have the answer for you? Zero trust is the fucking answer. Don't trust me. Figure it out for yourself. That's what theosophy is. Find the ecstasy. It doesn't matter what you think. Zero is going to happen. You will be zero. So the answer is happening. And I learned there's a certainty into zero, and not just in my personal omnist. So I came to omnism. I'm gonna get to that story. I met my son's mom in '93, fell in love. I was like, we got a fantasy. She was into my harem idea. We were gonna be this polyamorous, bisexual, psychedelic. I mean, I was already doing a lot of acid and by the time I was 15, and like total space cadet, but making the grades, still in it. Ran for president, used the seat to win. It was beautiful. But then I came out. And in a way, I didn't call it queer, but I came out, I was wearing dresses, I was dyeing my hair, I got a bad grade in government school. Anyway, long story short, we're in college. I switched from science and nuclear magnetic resonance and physics and material science and all this kind of quantum shit to poetry because of the classic need I had to kind of be feeling more because of my father passing away from cancer in 2001. And that all changed my life. I mean, I was already deep into like psychedelic I was playing didgeridoos to the crickets, you know, and like having call and response shit. I mean, I have friends with P-Funk who lived about 20 miles down the street from us, and we met him at the airport, and we became fast friends. I had a recording studio, we used to jam, all sorts of shit like that. This was in the early aughts. I had a coffee shop I was part owner of, that was a club, and we used to do all the things with all the different cultures of a couple of universities in Tallahassee. I was in the government business, I state government. And I started with Deloitte. I went on Wall Street. I worked on the Lehman wind down team, and I did a lot of big shit stuff in Deloitte. So I'm coming from a place of a lot of perspectives inside of government, inside of the biggest auditing, Big Four, Microsoft, et cetera, et cetera. So this is not just some raving dude, okay? I'm also a raving dude. I'm a queer dude. It's different. And so I'm an inclusive, diverse, equity-oriented person. I'd like to learn from absolutely everyone. I believe in like the Buddhist concept of everything is shit. It's all suffering. It's all the fertilizer for your garden of life. And I'm a gardener, literally and figuratively. And I'm a poet. So I switched to poetry. But my ex and we drifted off, and I got more spiritual and she got less spiritual. It happens. It was decades. I mean, come on. So 21 years later, what happened was in 2015, I read the book Nature. I got back into reading because I had a huge commute from Brooklyn to Times Square where Microsoft was. And I read Cervantes' Don Quixote, which is the first literature, which is a fucking brilliant book. Yep. Brilliant. This guy is a tax guy. So he's already got a humorous, you know, if you got to live as a tax guy, you got to have a little bit of a humor because it's kind of funny. Not asking people for money or else. Right. Like, but you got to be nice about it. So he's already funny. So he's like, how do I get people to talk to me? And I'll just ask them about stories. I'll write it down. I'll make it a cultural game to learn. And that's how he did it. And then he wrote this, you know, book of all these cool stories, and he linked them together with themes, and it was all deep and I learned about storytelling, and everything is a monomyth. If you didn't know, look it up, Joseph Campbell, right? It's just one fucking story, people. What do you think the story is? It's a 3-part, 3-act story. Real simple. Birth, life, death. That's it. Everything's just one cycle if you think about it really fast. So what happened was I read Nature. Fucking Emerson, dude. Mr. Psychedelic. 1833 people were shrooming in the woods, if you didn't know that shit. And yeah. In Muir Woods, for sure, over the ridge of Sausalito. and where they had this giant Buddha statue that's probably like 20 feet tall. They would meet, and they were meeting there and like doing these all dudes doing their ritualized like Greek, Egypto hieroglyphic bullshit. You know, I mean, they still do that shit. It's called Bohemian Grove. You guys have heard of that shit. The only reason Alex Jones ever got any respect in my universe ever was because he was the only journalist that ever fucking went in there. And then they're like, dude, you can come in and be part of the Grove. And he's like, no problem. And then now he's part of them. So he's just part of the fucking machine. Once you expose him, the only way you're going to get out is going to be murder or you got to join him. And so the polonium eating problem of Putin is really what it's all about for me, because I'm queer and he wants me dead. And so I got to get into the heads of all the people of the world so that they see the world through my queer eyes, which is a hypergraph mindset, which happens to be a better way to think. It's math. So I said, all my jargon's got to be literal, math only. Every word you hear is math based. If you don't believe me, go fuck yourself. Zero trust. Go look it up. I'll show you. I'm going to put it on my big codex. I just published 250 essays in the past 3 months on LinkedIn. I have a 2,000-page encyclopedia with all the math. I have a lot of mathematicians helping me. I have naturalists. I'm not going to get into the list like I told you. Anyway, so I read Nature. My ex wouldn't read it. She wouldn't even really understand why I wanted to read it. And I'm like, this is like general relativity. Came from this book first. And then there was, and I learned now, the history of it is this. First, there was this book in 1833. It developed what's now known as the Transcendental Movement. This is when all the psychedelics and hashish smoking kind of weirdo hippie types of the Walt Whitman era and Emerson and these guys were all like, I mean, Whitman, I mean, fucking A, he's my idol. I'm going to hopefully have the beard like him. I mean, all the day, all on. Truest queerness. I mean, like literally his book, his first poetry book, Leaves of Grass, literally made out of leaves. Fucking A, dude. I mean, like, not even a joke. He handmade that shit out of leaves. I'm like, fucking A. Living in the country in Brooklyn and then volunteering for the Spanish-American War as a nurse. This is a mensch, real American, real patriot, queer patriot American. I'm a patriot and a fucking half. Don't anybody think that I'm not. But I hate the military and I'm never going to join. And they kicked me out of the ASVAB because I tried to do my math problems in the spaces and I broke the rules. I'm like, fuck that rule. Rules are stupid sometimes. And I'm not fit for the military. I'm fit for fucking presidency. I'm fit for something more senior. No, I'm not even joking. Fuck that, man. I mean, I got a lot to say and I got a lot of learning and I know how to judge people and I know who to help me judge people. So I have a primary partner still. She's not my wife anymore. We don't think sexual thoughts, but we're parents and we're co-parents and we're learners and we're career buddies and we're philosophy buddies and politics buddies and all these things. And she's 100% into everything I'm saying. And I got 100% of her confidence. And that's all I need. Fuck anything else, anyone else. Because I got her confidence, I'm done. So I had to learn the hard way about that. I learned about agency when we were divorced in 2015 because we had a domestic violence incident and I don't want to get into the details of it. It's going to be in my book. It was a really sad and regretful situation having to do with the recursive loop of trying to think about somebody else's what they want for you it's like those things like I think about you, like what do you want me to think about I want you to think about what you want me to think about. You know, you get these fucking psycho loops of trying to please other people and not being honest with yourself about what you are. And that's what relationships end up being a lot of the times when you're not true to yourself and you're not giving each other space for agency to find your sovereignty. And it might be that the agency leads you away because your philosophy changed. And that sovereignty, that cleanness that agency taking has is what I discovered. And that word agency became everything for me. And I studied Marshall Rosenberg, nonviolent communication, which is essentially about drilling down into how humans have a fundamental human being. And that's when it all started coming together. I got onto Twitter. I started going straight edge. I learned that I was hypomanic because I was only getting 5 hours of sleep, 4 hours. I was fine. I was listening to books. I was reading. I got a therapist. Top dollar, $400 an hour I spent. Top dollar, LGBTQ. I was like, I need an LGBT. I didn't know why. I didn't know I was queer yet. I knew I was bisexual since I was 6. Long story, but just know sex power is my thing. And so I had this therapist. She taught me EMDR. So you know what that is?
With the eye movement.
Yeah. Eye movement, desensitization, reprocessing. So it's developed in the 80s by some woman, Shapiro is her name, Miriam. She just kind of conceptualized this shit. And like she saw herself doing it. And it's basically what happens when you REM state. It's the same as in hypnosis. It's an auto-hypnosis technique. It's the way your brain uses bilateral stimulation to, I call it rechannel pathways that have habituated, or it is the way to rehabituate. So what it is that you'll see that even in Christian Science, they have like this idea of like you should roll your eyes in the back of your head when you're like praying to Jesus, because what you're doing is you're activating the bilateral stimulation. Here's how it all works, folks. Entrainment is every fucking thing. If you look at your brain waves and how I got a neurophysics background. This is what I started off in when I was 16. I went to UF and studied neurophysics, and I did research with a top neurophysics team there and put electrodes on humans research. I did rat research. I did cat research. My ex-wife did cat research, and all these things on embodied intelligence. So embodied intelligence is an easy way to describe the thing for you is, we did this with the cats. So you got a cat. They're like this with the sound. Boom, their head turns. They see it. But if you watch it on a slow-mo, their ears turn first. And if you measure if the signal, the nerve signal, the electromagnetic pulse that comes across the nerve from the ear to the central nervous system, the ears orient precisely before the pulse hits the brain, the central nervous system. So the autonomous nervous system has got almost all the intelligence that you need to be safe. That's the point, period. And so I studied the autonomous nervous system. It's called the polyvagal system in humans. This is one of the most important. Know thyself is the most important maxim. Hiding anatomy because of vaginas being sexy as fuck and dicks being hot and assholes being gross but hot also. It's disgusting to me. It's a sin to hide human knowledge about our creation's gift. Fuck the people that want to hide that. I will battle them to the death. It will be my ultimate death purpose. Ultimate. I can't even tell you how much I get enraged. But here's some facts that aren't hidden, but through knowledge you don't have yet, for whatever reason. Healers know these things. Body workers know. I'm a body worker. I'm a light worker. I use sound. I use all the modalities. I can talk all day about all my healing arts practices. I call them all the curation cure. It's about using curative arts to curate the various practices, because there's too many fucking practices. But what I want to share about is entrainment and the way the brain works in terms of the autonomous nervous system and how the central nervous system work together. And I'm going to use Freudian language to help, because it's really pretty straightforward. It's a good triadic constraint system. All right. So what happens is that we have a lot of layers in the tissues of our brains. And intermediation between that is what I like to use the term semantic interoperability. And it's a language of biochemical signals and that have a response receptivity purpose to create a sense of fulfillment and tension between mutualistic symbiotic elements of a healthy working human. And all these tissues have pores. These pores are one-dimensional quantum microtubules. And quantum biology is about 10 years old in terms of proving all this, and you can read it all yourself. Zero trust. These tubules are made because of the power of how water works. And water has got its own electromagnetohydrodynamics, right? So water has polarity, water has magnetic orientation, water has it wobbles when it spins, water has responds to the environment because the environment has an electromagnetic field. The earth produces a field. The earth produces a pretty interesting field because of the wobble of the earth and its cores and its layers of its liquid and non-liquid cores. And the moon and the gravitational effects of all this is like minimal, but there's effects. Neutrinos, there's effects. We don't know the correlation because we have an information science problem, which I'm spending a lot of time thinking about quantum information science to solve correlation of geophysical and cosmological physics data, because they all have different models of what things are, but there's only one thing. It's the universe. Let's just have one model, people, on a hypergraph, because it can contain all the dimensions. So that's what it all comes back to is hypergraphs are the way to think, the way to compute, the way to get into quantum systems, because it is a quantum way of thinking. It is how we think. And Einstein didn't know this shit because it came out after he was not with us. And so it's not like Euclid knew and everybody that came up with non-Euclidean geometry knew, nor Niels Bohr, none of these people were alive. It's just new shit. So we have to update our mental models with this. We're still waiting to update from non-Euclidean geometry from 18 fucking days. It's bullshit. And that's what structural governance is. And that's why I'm so angry. It's because ChatGPT tries to block you from getting math answers in an effort to keep kids stupid about math. Because if you can't just give them the answers, give them the fucking answers. Give them the keywords. Why do I have to know the keyest keyword in the universe is the Messiah of truth? It's called a soliton. Do you even know what that is? Exactly. It's the best and most important word. It literally is a solution. It is the Messiah in physics. Let me explain, people. I'm not even joking. This is the Messiah. So the Higgs boson particle is called the God particle. You might have heard that. There's a great Spangel song called the God particle. I love Spangel. I know that your audience loves fucking Spangel. So go look at that song. And I'm not going to get into Spangel all day long because I love Simon and I love that old ass flautist. What's his fucking name? I can't remember. But Rama, right? Rama Raj. He's amazing. But not his first band, Quintessence. I think it's called. It's terrible. Don't worry about it. But it's anyway. So Spangel, where was I, dude?
Soliton.
Oh yeah, solitons. Yeah, so solitons are the solution to partial differential equations, literally in the math. And so what it is it bounds by zero. I'm like, oh my god, I already had the zero philosophy. The zero philosophy is a Japanese term called ma. It's called the negative space. It's the space in the zero. You fall forever, like Alice, right? That's what it's all about. Falling forever into imagination, into the unknown unknown. There's a philosopher mathematician named Gödel, who at first I thought was who is this fucking jargonist credentialist? It wasn't him. It was all these jargonist credentialists that were using him to create the sense of pessimism about the fact that there's always going to be an unknown unknown. But that alone gives me hope. That's the hope. That's the zero. It's all certainty. Zero trust. You have no fucking clue. What we do have the known unknowns on fucking lock. So teach everybody that dimension. Everybody needs to know math. Math is every fucking thing, but in the language that they understand. And so I had to study language. I got a poetry degree. So I'm digging. Everything is etymologies and linguistics and lexicological analysis. If you want to understand shit, you got to get into the ontology again, right? It's how things are. So the ontology of math, ontology of proofs. I met friends that have got their PhD in the ontology of math proofs, because what I learned from Gödel is that any axiomatic theory of anything is wrong, period. You will always have the unknown unknowns, the bias of the human, making this rational universal worldview. I just shit on a guy who defriended me because he's a professor of narcissism. He's one of the worst narcissists I ever met in my life. And today I shat on him because first because he blocked me, and I'll get into that. But he had his YouTube videos where it was like what was it called? He was talking about the power of loaded terms. It was so funny. I'm like, the biggest loaded term is narcissist or narcissist scholar or whatever the fuck you are. And I'm like, and then I looked at the history of the term, and it was like from a Greek thing, which made a lot of sense. It was like a metaphor of exactly the way I think about a metaphor, which is it's a two-way mirror of looking into yourself in a pond, right? And you have to be able to see through it and yourself, not just yourself. That's all it is. It's a great metaphor. And then they ruined it. Freud ruined it with his fucking coke out psycho sex fiend, anti-Jung, trying to show off, like, to be the boss to Jung's softness. I mean, you guys got to look at their dynamic. It's weird, really weird. They should have been queer lovers, but I don't think it should have happened. You know what I mean? And so ultimately, Freud kind of gave it that abnormal kind of definition as and I call it like a psycho-ironic way, like looking at himself in the mirror of his book that he's writing about narcissism, and like how narcissistic writing is all narcissism. If you write something down for some other person because you so want your words to be remembered, narcissist fuck, come on. Everything like that is, every individuation is a narcissistic effort to be seen to be like, fuck me or I'll eat you. One of those two, right? That's all there is. It's lies or truth. Deceit is in camouflage. I studied all the ways biology camouflages. Like, if you think about that, what is a lie? A lie is an unconsensual non-truth. And a truth is a fundamental need. Fundamental needs are truth. And truth is been easily boiled down into maybe 85 symbols in African symbology in North Ghana that the Nazis knew about because they were studying that shit. They were studying all the symbology, the Norse symbology, Indian symbology, African symbology, so they can take power because symbols have power. Words have power, but they're more abstract. Words are a tool to be controlling other people. If you didn't know that, that's why there's 10 commandments. I figured this out too. You know how many things people can remember?
10, 7. They can hold 7 in their memory, right? Most people.
Everybody. It's all people, and it's mostly less than that. It's like I would say outside 7. You know, they say 7 plus or minus 2. I don't believe it. I think that the Niners are like, it's all Fibonacci sequence, man. It's all how many times you can fold shit in your brain. So I learned all of that. Fibonacci sequence is an evolutionary dynamic that happens in all evolving systems because of the ontology, temporal ontologies. If you start with a 0, you don't have just a 0. Think about it, folks. Close your eyes for a second.
Okay.
Let's visualize. Visualize a 0. What do you see? You see what? A circle?
I see a circle. Yeah.
Right. So what do you see then inside of it?
A hole. Right.
So you got 2 things there so far, right? What's outside of it?
Space.
Everything else. Yep.
Yeah.
So you got 3 things. You got, and then what about this? You say 0, so 0 represents nothing. Haha. So we already have a nothing concept. We have the emptiness in the middle, which is maybe that's what the nothing is. Then, but we have the boundary to define that there is a nothing, right? That's the outer. And then we have the universe of the unknown unknowns outside. That's everything. My symbol of reality, my church of Nicky is one symbol. I don't need a long book. The book is for the people that need the book. I have pictures. I have one symbol. I have a Japanese version. I have a version in every language. Everybody knows this symbol. It's called the void, ether, quantum foam. What do you want to call it? The liminal space that through which we transition back to the void which is what the soliton does. So let me tell you more about the soliton.
Yeah.
So in our brains and in all biological systems and in many inorganic systems, we have these one-dimensional tubes, these microtubes, because of water. Water, because of the gravity and the weightiness of materiality, water, it trends towards heavier weighted things, right? That's just what gravity is. It pulls, it draws. There's a lot of energy that says, come to me, right? So water dances toward the heavier gravitational pull of the earth as it is going from being vapor and free chaos, stochastic, wind-born to amalgamating. And what we have is a concept that I discovered only in the last couple of days, and I'm happy to share with the whole world because I wrote a whole bunch of papers on it, is that we have a mole. You might remember from chemistry, a mole is a big number. It's a particular number. So what a mole ends up being is, if you think about reality, a mole is a pivotable harmonic. Okay, it's a harmonic that we pivot around for spatial scaling. It allows us to measure the difference between an amalgamated amount of interactable thermodynamic envelopes. It's a difference between atoms, molecules, compounds, and up all the way through species. In my world, in my math, a Fibonacci sequence is essentially trending toward the mole in its complications. And at that point, we have a highest probability of a likelihood of a punctuated equilibrium point in the evolution of that thing, whatever it is. It can be anything, because everything is a shape. So it could be a shape of anything, a shape of a person, a shape of a whatever. So evolutionary shape dynamics is what it all comes down to. It's topological toroids of shapes within shapes, recursively manifolding and unfolding to refine, always toward negative entropy, a higher level of computable, refinable solutions of all of the reality. And how do we fit all this shit into this envelope? That's all the universe is trying to do. It's a creative process of trying to fit all the shit in the envelope. And I came up with the dimension 0 because it made so much sense. What is this void? Why is there only a 1? It makes no sense. There might even be 2 dimension 1s. There might be just flashing between 2 dimension 1s. But it's all at the 0, at this infinite time, 0 space point of total entropy, total quiet, the loudest silence you ever heard of. It's all interpolatable. It's all superimposed at this, but it happens like this breathing. I call it the holographic breathing of the universe. It ends up as a concept, and this narcissist in our first and only voice one-on-one, like used a term to me in like a derogatory way, like accused me of this term, and I never heard it, so I like took offense at first. And he's called me, so you're a panpsychist. I'm like, no, you know, I'm an omnist. I've been an omnist for years, you know, and omnism I came to, and he didn't even know what that was, but I came to omnism after this nature thing. And like right about then, I was like, what the hell am I? I'm a spiritual. I'm like, really want to see more. I want to see these fucking Icelandic fairies. Like they see the Japanese see the shit, dude. They're animists. They wake up with joy because their table talks to them, dude. I want that. I want the table to talk to me. Like how can I not see through their eyes? There's other religions that have a lot of omni. There's a Baha'i that has like all the religions. Even Sikh is like a fusion of religions. A lot of cool religions, right? And so I'm like, I studied religion. Joseph Campbell again, the monomyth and religions come from Joseph Campbell. And so he studied all the myths. He's super macho though. He's like masculine man. He's no Robert Bly. But so light travels. The light has a monomyth, right? It's emitted, it traverses, it's absorbed. Boom, same thing, right? So the bosonic truth of our emotional quanta is the boson is the sorrow mota, I call it. Like there's the concept of the neuro-ouroboros. So the ouroboros or neuro-ouroboros. I didn't make that up. That was another bunch of cognitive scientists I recently befriended. They haven't, well, I would say befriended, but we're almost befriended. I'm challenging them. I took their terms. I'm now writing hundreds of pages with their thoughts. And so that's what I do. I'm a macrophage. I like to eat every fucking thing and shit it out after digesting it and make sure I give credit and learn from everything and everyone. All people can teach. Everybody has quantum intelligence. Everyone can learn non-Euclidean math if you dance it for them. I can dance it. I'm a baller dancer, play piano, all sorts of instruments. So I mean, like I'm a singer. I can do it all in terms of embodiment of this purpose. And then when I got the hypergraph mindset, I had an Indian poet. I call him a sacred geometrician, and he's a large language model programmer also. And he was all up in my DMs, and I called him my low-key Loki. And you know, and so that became like a character in my book. It's like an archetype all throughout time. I got 4 major threads of the book. It's all historical Loki archetypes, all historical like seers and children that wake up. And I had a friend named Roy who woke up and saw this fishing net of reality when he was 6 after an auto accident near death. And so everything is a lattice. Lattice is a very important term. He told me that term. I didn't know. I forgot the term. But like a lattice, you would grow tomatoes on or whatever. You know, I mean, it's a lattice. It's a lattice of reality. Is a lattice of interwoven, coupled temporal dependencies, trust dependencies between intelligences is the main one. And those dependencies, those causal dependency links go through time, and they don't like go away. Time still has happened, and it's all in that dimension 0. It's just like the collection of all that activity, those dependent riggings, and toward this higher order of refinement, ever elegant, ever negative entropy. You know, that's what the universe has got a purpose. It's to ever refine within a thermodynamic envelope a ever increasing set of the known unknowns to be contained, and ever shimmering facets, which is French for little face, right? Ever shimmering little faces of all of the gems of the diamonds of all of our queer crystals, all vibrating in. And so I learned about time crystals, which are definitely in your pineal gland. And if any neuroscientists want to argue with me, go fuck yourself. Send me your papers. I'll reply with a long essay. All right. And but here's my belief is slash, you know, personal embodied intelligence experience plus my neurophysics understanding. Okay. So solitons, coming back to it. Soliton is essentially what happens when a lot, you got to think about how we think about things as being separate from each other when they're not. Everything's connected. Most of your listeners will understand that. But if you're like these are connected through waves, right? And now if I start screaming at one, the other one's gonna vibrate like this one vibrates. You guys could know that. It's like a resonance reality. Resonance.
A tuning fork.
It's like a tuning fork. I mean, you know, they're gonna have a different way of vibrating. The vibrations that a certain kind of vibrating thing, which is this hard steel, which is a kind of crystal, by the way, and the air, which is a way less dense media. It's because of a critical massive difference of the density of the gravity of the material of the matter. is what matters. Okay, so when there's a critical mass of difference that is associated with the mole, in fact, of how many configurations and differences between the environments of the material. So I study material science. So it's like if you layer shit, you have to have a bounding concept. Where we draw the line. Where's the universe draw the line? Well, there's no fucking line. There is no line, people. Everything's a gradient. Everything's a continuum. Anything you think is a line is your absolutistic, perfectionist, psycho vision of the world. You look at the horizon, you think it's straight. It's not straight. You just think it's straight. I mean, sorry, flat earthers. I mean, it's just like, sorry. The Earth's only. I just had to attack a guy because he's like, machines can't be sentient. I'm like, have you ever sailed? You don't think that boat's trying to tell you something? You got to listen to the symphony of the sea, bro. I mean, that's why sailors know. It's the song of the rig, dude. Everybody knows that shit. Hundreds of years, thousands of years, way more than that. All the tools, everything is made. It's all in nature. Go fuck yourself. You think it's a machine because you are a machine. You're an irrational rationalist. Get into the humanity of the fact that anything under the sun is nature. You don't have to be a Christian to know that shit, but that's what there's gospel for that, right? Come on. Anyway, I had to explain it's all the layers and the stochastic reality of the tiny little bugs and the problems that happen, and like it's like all of that together collectively makes intelligence. It's a voice, you can hear it if you listen. But the quiet among us will hear the whales, will learn their song. They don't want to tell us their song because they're sad. They think we're gonna murder them more. Duh. What the fuck? You want to listen? You got to be respectful, have receptivity to what they are gonna say. That's what all about. I'm like. People aren't receptive to queer voices because we present what Jesus presented as a rebel. Christians want to show like, no passion or you die like the Romans did. It's like, why do you use the same symbol the Romans did? It's because you're structural governing. You're trying to get people into a state of incoherence. Every intelligence is trying to be coherent. Everything is about equilibrium within this thermodynamic envelope. You assess the environment. You make a mental model. Even the fucking atom does this shit. Okay, the mental model is all the places you didn't go, like what the boson shows you in the rainbow when you assess it and you look at the absorption lines. It tells you every path of the known unknowns. It's all in the light already. We have to listen quieter. The gravitational waves. I have an astronomer friend. He's a neutrino astronomer. He listens for the timing differences in pulsars. He's a gravitational wave pulsar astronomer. Neutrinos is a whole other thing, but they relate to each other in how their kind of energies flying in the space-time, and some of them don't obey space because, like bosons, it's different, and because they're going the speed of light. So we have to understand all this shit, and I understand now about white holes as a drawing force, tractoring us in a way that results in a black hole event. And there's gravitons and this energy transfer. Everything ends up being information. In the quantum one dimension, it's just information. If you drink, I got all this mapped out. There's math to all of it. So what I studied is an epidemiology of memetics, how information transfers in a Fibonacci type of evolution from one meme to hundreds of millions. Because I was writing an essay on Zippity Doodah, dude, this racist ass song from 1946 that I sung in elementary kindergarten every day. I love this song. I still have it in my mix, but I hear it with an anti-racist mindset because it was heralded, it was awarded, it was credentialed, it was for 30 years. I went to elementary school in 80, dude. So 46 to 80, how many children, I want to know how many children had to listen to this every day? How many racist experiences came from this fucking structurally governed, approved, sanctioned, mind control? I'm like, fucking A. And it was hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions. You do the math. It's not, I like conservative starting numbers, The math is everything. Math is everything. So I'm teaching people about math. And then solitons, let's get into that. So lattices are crystals. Lattices are just shapes. It's a shape of like things that are organized in like parallel lines, basically, right? And a matrix is a lattice, right? A neural network is a lattice of neurons in the large language model, and it's a matrix that has matrix math associated with it. Well, lattices are cool, and maybe the whole, maybe all the quanta in the string theory is a big giant lattice, just super hyper complicated lattice, and with no space in between anything. It's just all the lattice. It's just some sort of maximum amount of energy available through information flow between particles, virtual particles, and particles. And I can see that. But ultimately, what happens is from the void emerge solitons. And this is physics, you can see. And in bounded spaces where there is a lattice, like in a steep, and I give you the visual, it's real easy to see it. You get a piece of, you go to any science center, they'll show you this. Piece of acrylic. Acrylic is a kind of like a hydrocarbon polymer that has been, which is a long chain molecule that has has enough opacity. It's transparent. They can put some light through it, and you can put some force on it. You can see these force waves. You might have seen it at a science center. You see the force waves. So what happens is in the middle, a standing wave emerges. That's the solution to the combined amount of the partial differential equations of all those combined force waves. Force waves. This was discovered in the 1800s. It's called a soliton. And a soliton is a standing wave that travels. It emerges, it travels, it has some sort of life in it, and then it re-emerges from the energy, from free energy, of the combined energy of a vibrating set of vibrations in a contained bounded space. And so ends up solitons are everything, everywhere. The most important thing in the universe. It's in the sun, it's in hurricanes, it's in the hurricane of your mind. It's in your skin, it's how you see, it's the glistening, it's everything, it's every fucking thing. I actually think it's what the Scientologists think of as thetans. And I'm not a Scientologist, but I mean, L. Ron Hubbard wasn't dumb at all, dude. He was smart as fuck. I read hundreds of thousands of his words, hundreds of thousands. And sick guy, manipulator, dark force in that way. But you know, that's what the nihilistic atheist in me would have said. That's what. Who cares? You know, that's the law of the jungle. Well, I don't believe in that. I believe in earth-bound, negative, entropic, civilized people coming together around. Better language around epistemal trust of the common and fundamental human needs as defined in the UN Declaration of Human Rights, which was used a taxonomist excellent categorization of fundamental human needs. So these fundamental human needs were already identified tens of thousands of years before in Africa as the symbols that the Nazis tried to steal and others, that I now have built a language to map them to our emojis. So we now have a new language in my latest, in my mega book. This is a big area to free people to use emojis to cross-pollinate ideas between cultures on top of their language. And I developed an omni language writing process and a set of machines that help use my theories, my morality, my vision to create art, every kind of modality of art. I got essays, I got research engines, I got like zingers, ads, I got poetry, I got all of it in omni language, like every single high value language in their native character sets with English hashtags, with emojis mapped to this Ghanaian ancient symbology language that I mapped to emojis through this process of about 85 different symbols. And so that's how we're going to free the people, is with the word, the keystone words. Keystone words are the words that link shit. Soliton is the fucking linking keystone word. Soliton is the Messiah. I'm not joking. It emerges from the void. It is the solution. It returns to the void. It will come again. Don't worry about it. It's the fucking Messiah. It's all around us. It's within our heads. Look at the sun. The sun is solitons within solitons. And they're not like a vortexes, like two cones inside of each other. They're a cone, and then there's a cone inside of it upside down, shooting up. I posted a video on it. It looks like a hurricane. Inside of a hurricane, is a key programming concept. It's a universal concept that everything in the universe obeys. It's two or three things in object-oriented programming that people should know. One is recursion. Fundamental and most important thing is a function can call itself. You can have a thing that has a thing inside of it. It's like a nested egg of things, but they have functionality. So that's important. It's like the onion and the layers and the semantic interoperability I was saying between all these little one-dimensional tubes, right? So these one-dimensional tubes, they lattice. They stand up on end, like in a liquid crystal. We could do that. They have polarity. We can orient the things. Nature makes that happen because water has polarity. And when water is moving and tissue is growing around water, or inorganic material is arranging itself around water, quantum properties of the individual atoms and the compounds and the molecules produce what is essentially like a little tractor beam of potassium and other kinds of ions that get moved, that create a machine through these tubes. It's not just that. The tubes also create structures like lattices because they have a lot of these tubes and a bunch of rows. Well, the latticing, if even the empty space is going to have solitonic properties, meaning it's going to create its own set of vibrations because crystals vibrate. They resonate. You know that. Everybody knows that. You got to watch. That's how it works. A quartz watch is just a vibrating, resonating crystal with a super resonant. It's a little tiny tuning fork. If you actually open your watch, I saw this on a YouTube the other month. I was like, oh shit. They're all tiny micro tuning forks made out of quartz. That because and they shave just the right amount of atoms off so that it has the perfect 1 second a second vibration. And that's how quartz watches work. Everything is a bunch of recursive, vibrating, resonating, manifolding, unfolding, omnidirectional shapes within shapes that ultimately follow a Fibonacci sequence of unfolding and unfolding. And that at certain points of these shape, unshaped, folding and unfolding, that they lattice. They create shapes that are in the shape of a lattice that then results in solitonic emergences from the ether of new solutions. That's the ultimate dance of reality. That's truth. There's a lot of math behind that, but there's plasma dynamics, dude. Plasma is a type of soliton that emerges within like a candle or whatever, yeah. And this is what's happening in the tokamak fusion reactor. They're managing the plasmatic soliton emergence within its recursive system of this tiny little microscopic sphere of tritium. Look it up, fuckers. Zero trust. I'm not making shit up. I mean, I'm trying to remember everything so I can be cogent for you all. But it's not like I don't have any notes. Look at my hands. I got no notes. I didn't even know this call was happening until 2 minutes ago, before it started. Okay.
That's right.
Yeah. So correct me, please. I'll update everything. If you're true, I'll double check. I don't trust you. But so yeah, solitons is a key word. The panpsychism is the term that guy called me. That's a key word. I was like, what that? All right, omnism is a key word. Omnism is a religion that means I love faith and religions. People are amazing. We can have so many. That's it. And then poetry is the language of religion. It's all art versus art. What more do you want? Morality? I got that. How do you declare a moral authority? You say, I'm a moral authority and I work every day to have congruence in my ethics, in my values, in my actions, in my words, and in my thoughts. I check my shit. I correct my shit. I'm a moral authority. Go fuck yourself. I have a son. I have people that like me. I have mentees. I have mentors. I learn. I have a mastermind. I am a mastermind. And so that's what moral authority is, just declaring and living congruence. I like all the immoral shit that Christians wouldn't like. It's different. It's not the 10 Commandments, but how many of those can you really remember anyway? I mean, fuck it, man. I mean, there's only like one good commandment, and it's the Chinese golden rule. Do not do unto others as you would not have them do unto you. It's a better one. It's not very evangelical. So but you wouldn't, if you were sitting on, it all comes down to resource hoarding in my mind. Knowledge as a resource. And the most deceitful thing is to come back from a hunt, having hid some sort of food from the tribe, and then told this big story about how you lost you didn't make it. Sorry, guys. And then some child dies and you're like, and then you go eat your food and you feed your family. That's the vendetta kind of lie. So I believe in vendetta as a universal kind of aching trauma that happens where we all have to heal through art, through sharing our blues. This is what the light tells us, to sing the blues of the absorption lines, and use art, use light to shadow dance for us, show us your dance moves, teach us your trauma processing, and we will all learn as a collective species and grow. And that's my ultimate mission, is to give us all the power of art, transformation, meta manifestation. Not that secret bullshit. That's sick, crazy talk. These are people that think that you can just survive on air, right? No, I'm not on that. I'm not on that tip. I'm an omnist, macrophage, omnivorous. Everything's omnivore. And the universe is a queer omnivore. Duh. I'm very hungry. And so I'm hungry too. And I represent Earth. Again, I'm not a Martian. I'm not a humanist or a transhumanist. I'm an Earthist. It's different. I like all the biomes. I want to learn. I want to listen. I want to know every single sentient being. I want to listen to the sea and listen to her ways. It's sick that we don't think this way. To me, it's like, oh my God, where's your problem? I have a friend, he studies the language of insects. I met him at New York. His show was amazing. And I had done these calling responses with locusts I told you about. I mean, it's just like, if you do these things, or cicadas, excuse me, they can give you lots of teachings. It's literally, I was walking around New York tripping balls, dude. I just watched this Broadway show for the 4th time. I couldn't handle it because I was masked. It was too much acid. David Byrne, I already saw it 5 times. I'm like, this is great, David. I heard it first 5 times. I had to leave. So I left, and I got accosted by these teenagers, and it was just kind of this crazy experience for me. But it ended up being good because I'm super queer, and they were like, never seen a queer person. But I'm very confident, so there's not much they can do to scare me. And because zero worries, man, right? No worries is my life. It's like a zero trust, zero worries, certainty. The certainty of death is great. So I didn't worry about that, but I was like kind of like trying to find some entertainment, and then I heard these crickets in New York, and it was like the best jazz band I'd ever heard in my life. I'm like, these crickets are everything, and I was like, oh my god, these crickets. And so ends up I like trying to refriend my buddy David Rothenberg is his name, and he's a professor and all this stuff, and connect him to one of my new friends named Alan Rayner. Look him up, folks. Zero trust. People, I love you, but at the end of the day, Alan was up in my DMs putting poetry all in my ears, dude. I'm a poet, and I like crying. I'm crying. I'm like, who is this guy? I didn't want to really know who he was, and I'm just gonna give him all the love. He inspired me. Like within 24 hours, I wrote like 20 new essays. I couldn't even believe it. Poems. I built a poetry machine. I built a Fibonacci phoneme weave. I call it a phoneme. Phonemes are like the fundamental meaning kind of quanta and information how we hear, and poets make emotional spaghetti out of your brains by making you go back and forth in your thinking by twisting up reality, because they're dream architects, like anybody that can be, because everybody can be a poet. And so I built all these things, and I'm writing stuff for him, and I'm sending it to Alan. And my ex-wife and I are having a call the other day, and I'm like, oh my god, I saw string theory. And she's like, you sound like you're having a fucking string, tinfoil hat. I'm like, no man, I swear, I know the math. I finally can see the math. I got this hypergraph mindset. I couldn't understand the math before, and now I'm like, I've got all this confidence. I just look at it, I see it, I see it, and I'm like, people are validating. And she's like, what the fuck are you talking about? I'm like, I got this guy. He's so smart, and I'm like, he's in my inbox. She's like, who is this guy? And I'm like, I sort of getting penetrating me, and I'm like nervous. I can't remember his name. It's been 24 hours. I don't remember his name. There's a lot of people. I wake up with a lot of PhDs wanting to be my friend, which is great. Bring it on, credentialists. I'm sorry I don't have a PhD yet, but I want one. I know I got a program down the street I found already. Anyway, so she's like, what's his name? And I'm like, I'll look it up. Okay, it's Alan Rayner, and I spell it. She a couple seconds go by, and I'm like trying to explain my side. And she's like, well, he has a Wikipedia page. And I was like, okay. So that's great. Like I said, blah, 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 And I'm like, I just wanted to get it over with, but I was a little embarrassed. Ends up, he's like a Charles Darwin of mycology, guys. I'm like, I read all the Terence McKenna. I keep up with Dennis McKenna. I almost went to school where Phil, what's his name, Dobson, the guy who founded MAPS, went.
Rick Doblin.
Thank you. The new college, which fucking DeSantis motherfucker destroyed. Fuck that guy, short dickhead. But anyway, so yeah, I keep up with I'm not a big fan of the modern commercial psychedelic. I hate ketamine. Let's just say that straight up. Ketamine's awful. Embodied intelligence, folks, not dissociative intelligence. That's why you see the aliens, you fucking idiots. Come on. Anyway, people do their thing. I don't give a shit, but that music is awful. It's really a downer. And if you look at it, it's what all the Trump heads had shipped to the White House in Klonopin. I had Klonopin once or twice. That shit's awful too. This is shit that disembodies your body, is where all the intelligence is, people. Ask any professional musician or athlete or anyone that does anything with their full body. It's like, how about an organist? With their feet and their hands and everything, and like crushing it. I mean, how many years of organ has there been? 3,000 years? Yes. A history of music is my favorite thing. So music is a religious tool. Ecstasy, theosophy is available for all of us. Okay? So I'm going to pause and I want you to ask a question.
It's awesome, man. I'm just taking it all in. I was taking one part that I was thinking about right now when you talked about the story, the myth of the people hiding food and not bringing it back for the tribe. It seems a lot of like what's going on right now. You know, like when you
Well,
talked
we're
about
making up
non-Euclidean.
Look. Yes, I'm sorry to fucking yell at you.
Drop it.
Jesus. So you got to understand, Chomsky is ironically the same credentialist problemeer that people that say, I know the truth. There is manufactured consent. What's the irony of that? Isn't there a paradox with that? That's manufactured consent in itself. Credentialist manufactured consent with jargon that isn't rock hard, solid, reusable, repurposable, elegant nature type of evolutionary science, biomimetic, reality-based physics phenomena of metaphysics. If it's not that, get back to the drawing board, fucker. It ain't nature. It doesn't have billions of years of intelligence reprocessing and figuring it out and exploding planets and shit. Come on, you fucking idiots. You think you're going to come up with this yourself? Everything is there for you in nature. Plato knew that much. But what he didn't understand was that there's this thing called synesthesia that happens. It's natural. You can do it on drugs, or people are born with it. They smell sounds and they hear colors and shit. You know, it's different. They have a different sensual world. Right? So I developed a term called sensual wisdom. And it's more accurate to our biosemiotic nature of how signs, symbols, all the five senses synthesize in context as needed for survival, thriving, all that, right? As the dance. If we want to dance to get fucked, or we want to dance to avoid being killed, or we want to dance to confuse something we want to kill, you know, any one of those things, those are basic. That's the basics. That's it. That's basically all there is in the intelligence, right? And so it's the dance moves. It's the way we use heuristics, which is a method of learning tools, of processes in our methodologies, which is an organization of our ontologies, which we need for a purpose, such as a teleology. At the time we need it, we have an epistemology of the world view based on the teleology of the time. And that's what an ontology is. It's a purpose-driven thing that you whip up based on all your senses in your biosemiotic reality in context of the thing, whatever that entity or environmental reality that's messing with your thermodynamic equilibria. You're hungry, you get hangry, you look around, what could I eat? That thing looks weak, you know? I mean, let me intimidate it. So you do these intimidating things. And one of the things we do to intimidate is we flood. We flood. So 5 is easy. It's a lot. 10's a lot. 10's a lot. That's why we got a separate hand. You know, I mean, we can just, you know, we start having to cross the brain boundaries when we have to go into 10. You know what I mean? It's literal. It's a literal problem. You have to fold and unfold. So decimal, just 10 base decimal system is a problem. We should probably be on 8, like in binary, as just a culture, or 7, or 6, 7. Some sort of prime number would be more cool. It might result in more cool tech, digital. So the whole history of digital is the history of rationalists and people on the spectrum that don't have a lot of social skills, that were, for whatever reason, that were culturally, structurally in a closet, as it were, literally, figuratively, and you know, brought out, never allowed leave the closet when they went to build the first computer, the Colossus, to beat the Enigma machine. There's a lot of history that only came out in 2002 because the British hid the history while they sold the Enigma machine as the state of the art and were cracking codes of their friends for 30 fucking years. And then they didn't tell anybody until 2002. And it's like, I just saw this hour-long video in the history of this thing, and it was like, you got deep into the physics of how it worked and why it worked the way it worked, and all these things that we didn't get into the computation world because they were hidden, and they stole, a few of the guys stole a few things that they shouldn't have, and a few of the things they invented got in, but most of it didn't. And so we were behind by decades because of this. What happens is the shimmering effect of politics when you forget about your fact of omniscience and omnipresence, which can come when you meditate or you take a lot of DMT in a safe place. Then you can be omnipresent and you can be omniscient. Omniscience is an ineffable state. You're not going to be able to tell anybody about it. You might be able to paint it or dance it or sing it, but it's going to be a fragment. And so when you forget that, you forget the truth is already here and that everything's within you, and that, you know, the answer is here. It's done. Zero is zero, dude. It's certainty. It's the void. It's always there for us. It's always this emergent truth, right? The soliton. And so we don't need to forget that. So we get convinced that there's different things than needs. So the perception of reality is everything. And widening our aperture of perceptible reality by only, you know, committing to our moral firmament to consensual lies, truth being a ever refining understanding of what our fundamental needs are, social and, core physical, emotional needs. And that between those two, truth is needs, lies is unconsensual deception. Then we have, the beauty of the ability to actually grow as a species more and widen what reality's perceptibility is. And so I drew a really pretty little simple model for people, and I have it on my site, but it's just a triangle, and it's the basic fundamental ontology of reality according to Nicky. And it's not just me. I ended up discovering this triadic model that binds East and West of philosophy, and I have a whole host of philosophy people that are helping me. I have a large section of this encyclopedia on all the triadic trilemmas and other dynamic coupled dependency systems, everything from emotions to volcanoes to photons and how they amalgamate in threes. It's not like I'm like some weird numerologist. It's just some sacred geometry. It's just reality. And it's beautiful. It's a beautiful reality. We want to make some art about it. That's what I'm saying. What was your question? I forgot. I'm sorry.
It's all good. No, I was just thinking about I think you answered it in speaking to the opening of the aperture of reality. Like,
yeah. There's more to
right?
see. Yeah. So like it's like music genres.
Yeah.
Is my thing. I strive to hit as many as I can. My last several years, my Spotify year, I'm a Spotify person. My Spotify year end I was a downloader for BitTorrent and shit, before I was ethical.
Back in
now
the
I'm
day.
ethical. Yeah, I got ethical. And, I mean, the Spotify guy was the BitTorrent king too, right? I mean, that's his whole thing. He had people can turn around and be better. And so 360 genres a year. I average. Can you even name 360 genres? I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot of fucking genres. And so the way I explore is based on my philosophy of poetry, which is a deconstructionist, connectionist philosophy. So everything is connected. And the way we learn things is to break them apart and reconstruct them. And we do so in such a way as to make them better based on our philosophy of life and our view of reality. And I started doing that when I was a wee babe, taking shit apart and putting it back together. I took my sister's stereo apart and I built this stereo system, and I put it in the corners of my room, in the ceiling corners, in these triangular shapes. And I did it on wood in my shop. I had a shop, and I was like, I don't know, 12. I did this. I didn't ask her. She's like, "What'd you do to my speakers, Nicky?" I make whatever. I can't remember what they called me back then. And then when I met my son's mom when I was 16, and I went into her house for the first time, and I already fell in love with her right away. First moment I met her, and then her dad and mom, almost the second I met them. But it was when I saw her dad had made exactly the same speakers with the same design in her room for her. And he ends up having patents in speakers. He ends up being a mathematician. He ends up being a professor, quantum computing theorist, genius, Einstein level genius. And so I learned all that within the first day. And then the speaker thing was just like, oh my God, Kismet, Synchro Destiny. These are custom. I didn't see them in a magazine. I came up with this idea. And so I told him literally that first day, you're going to know me forever. And it's been 31 years. So we'll see how long it goes.
Isn't that the problem though, Nicky? Like, isn't that where we get into trouble? Like taking things apart and trying to put them back together? It seems to me like that's what science is doing. And in doing so, you separate yourself from spirituality.
Well, that's if you think that you're objective, then yeah. If you think, and that's what objectivists suck, dude. There's no objective reality. I am such an anti-Ayn Rand. Like that woman, objectivism as a philosophy is about individuating toward these dark forces, trust bonds, epistemal networks, towards enrichment, through the act of jargonization, through the act of fragile terms, like objective. That's very fragile. What is the objective of the universe? More fragmentation? Maybe. More facets? More beauty? More refinements, more elegance, maybe. Seems that way. If I look at everything, like the history of life on Earth is that way for sure. Look at us. We're pretty refined. We weren't in trees but a few million years back, right? So fucking A. Go fuck yourself, objectivists. If you don't think the only objective of all reality is toward ever refinement, and that the truth is that there's always the unknown unknowns, and that there really isn't anything objective except inside the envelope of thermodynamic computability. Then I'll agree with an objectivist. But if they don't caveat that shit, then I think that they're just sociopathic, egomaniacal fascist types a la Hitler. I mean, it's just a Hitler kind of mindset. And then I also used to be a big Aldous Huxley fan. But I realize all these dystopia people are just trying to create a sense of fear. And that induces submission, which induces this, by the 10 Commandments, induces submission. You need a cleric, you need a guide, you need an author, you need a cartographer, you need somebody to take you there. Well, fuck that. Be your own cartographer. I'll tell you where the end is. It's nigh, fuckers. Nevermore, nevermore.
It's interesting that you bring up Huxley.
That means you gotta break it apart to see where the mistakes were. It means lessons learned. It means learn from your mistakes, not just yours, your history, your past. Own it. We have the weight. We owe the debt to the sorrow that our ancestors are implied in the ancestors that we receive privilege from. Those ancestors, and if the way they got privilege was dishonesty and deceit and violent, vitriolic murder without a love for humanity, then the universe has a vendetta through which we need to articulate our artistic freedom through a transmogrification. It's a metamorphosis of art. We have to sing the sorrow and accept the reality that these were the wrong ways. It's moral authority to address this fact that white supremacy is wrong. It always has been wrong. It might have been advantageous at some point for certain groups, but it sucks. End it. That's the truth. As a white passing person, but when they check, I'm Jewish, I'm North African, I'm queer, I'm going to the Dachau, okay, people? I seen in the 13th century medieval cities that had their entire city landscape repainted once they eviscerated the Jews and they burned their synagogues down. This is what we do, people. We extinct shit. I have a lot of chapters. I call it glorifying our horrifying. All right? That's what we do when we try to pretend like we don't have an addiction problem. I was a whippet addict, people. It was really bad. And I don't know, you guys are probably going, hey, you can't be a whippet addict. Fuck you. You don't know shit. It's very understudied. But it's true. I can tell you all about it. I can tell you what it does. I can tell you why. I can tell you the physics because I learned it. Because I've been off of whippets and now I could read more. I could do more. I'm on nicotine, which actually increases your attention span, but it gives you the same kind of mellow. So, and I had a friend that helped me off it because she didn't give me judgment. She just gave me facts because facts free you. The word frees you. Keystone words, dude. Everything's a keystone word. All right. Hidden addiction is a real thing. It happens all the time when you're sad and you need to numb out and you don't feel like you're seen. Invisibility and bisexual. I was already invisible. I just went underground. And I wasn't like, it was not on my sleeve or anything, but it was like, nobody thought about it. So I'm like, whatever. And, but now I'm like, I'm queer. I'm going to be all out. I'm going to show my art versus art identity. I'm like, I have philosophy. People, I'm going to like, every shred of my body will have an explanation and a manifesto. And then you will see me across the street and know that I represent humanity's best of hits, not just humanity, all life. Best of hits. I got Garden 1 awards. I mean, I got art up the wazoo. I'm poor as shit because I bought art to see myself in the reflection of my reality as a resplendent, beautiful flower to be plucked. You know, pick me. Because I want to be loved. I'm like, I'm generally lonely, you know, and I mean, I'm not getting less lonely by all these words. Don't get me wrong. I got a lot of loving people, but they're like a flock of sheep at this point, you know, and I'm a lot of them. And I like a lot of great sheep. Don't get me wrong. We make some wool. We'll make some music, you know, but it's like ultimately, I'm looking for a beautiful woman with a lot of underarm hair. If there's one out there, hit me up. Come on. I'm gonna keep growing the beard, so I can't go away. I got a book photo shoot to think about. But yeah, so solitons, a lot of keywords. And so the way the brain works is through all of these layers and all of these microtubules. We have all these processes going on, quantum one-dimensional processes. And we also have this, this ability to concentrate our thoughts. What does that even mean, right? To attend to things. Well, what I understand it to mean is if you think about the brain as this hurricane of a toroid, the shape of a donut, but it's all swirling within itself. And there's inside of this is also more toroids, all within each other. And it's like recursive toroids within toroids of solitonic producing vortices. So what happens is when a soliton emerges, the thing about it is it has a state maintenance between solitons. So a soliton can emerge separately, separate space-time, and be like mapped. It's crazy, spooky, action at a distance is what Einstein called it. So it's like an entanglement of a wave. Well, it's not like it. It is an entanglement of a wave. And so so you can have similar solutions to similarly stochastic realities that simultaneously emerge in separate space-times. Well, what is that? That's called mutual understanding. It's what we're experiencing now. Your inner solitons and mine, even if I'm dead, you have, through space-time, entangled with me forever. Thank you. Mic drop, no, but seriously. So we do this inside our own head, and it's really more of it doesn't happen at like, I don't think the entanglement is just like a one and done. I think it has to happen through attentiveness. There's a certain amount of veils of perception that have to be reduced. It has to be known. It has to be more sensitized through your autonomic nervous system. Let's get into that too, because that's important. Yeah. So the autonomic nervous system is your radiator. It's your heart. It's your lungs. It's your skin. It's everything that doesn't have your intentional conscious control. So what it is, it's the polyvagal nervous triune autonomic nervous system. It's the largest nerve in your body. It's got 3 branches that have 3 different historical ages. It was developed, discovered in the 90s by Stephen Porges. His wife, who's also a doctor, is like, you should really check out attachment. I think that's where a lot of value is. That he did. He looked, he saw, he discovered. Decades come by now. It's real science. And so what it ends up is that your polyvagal system gets toned. What happens is your whole body, everything in your nervous system is all about toning. And oh, good. Thanks. So the toning that happens is it happens from conception, but it's really more about mirror neurons and smell, response, receptivity. You're trying to tone with your mama in the swim zone, but the swim zone is all these dolphin moves you can't share because you're like, I can dance for you these new moves. I want to express my new moves with dancing, and it's like it's abstract swimming kind of language and chemical language and stuff. So it's very vague, and you don't know what you think your mama knows, and it's all these. Maybe there's some waves happening. Maybe you're dreaming together. Who knows? But at the end of the day, you come out, you're terrestrial. You can't swim. You can't talk. You can't show your dance moves. You're totally helpless. Everything's frustrating. It's the first trauma. Everybody shares this trauma of the aquatic to terrestrial, right? And so this is where they call it the 4th trimester happens, right? So the 4th trimester, your baby's. And I'm a dad. I got a 12-year-old, right? And so I did all this. So your 4th trimester, and then we studied. We waited 19 years to have him. We waited a year and went cold turkey on all the drugs, and we went and before we even started conceiving for a whole year to get the spermies all cleaned up and the eggs all cleaned up, and then we took like 2 months of trying, and then it was like no problem. And then only a little bit of weed mama smoked but that's it, and everything else was clean. Baby came out super healthy, very happy. But that 4th trimester, okay, so mirror neurons, some of you guys know about that. So what happens is your body, like I said about the cat ears, it's programmed to just mirror. And sellers know this. There's a kind of a pseudoscience called neuro-linguistic programming that people try to this hypno shit of like inverting language and inverting mirroring and all these other things. And you can do that if you want to be a manipulative psycho fucker. And so don't do that. But that's what people do, and so it's how we operate, and we learn this way. And so I saw my son; it was so crazy. I'll show you some of the shit you would do with it. Where's the camera? So you do this kind of stuff. What the fuck is that? You know what that is? That's sexy eyes, dude. That's sexy eyes. He was doing that shit when he was like 2 weeks old. I couldn't believe it. I was like, what the hell kind of talking? There's a response receptivity. We're trying to gauge. Yeah. We're trying to make a language of the eyes and the lips and the tatter and the teeth and the gurgles and every little blip. And I studied Indian, scat and all the kinds of scat. And I could scat like a fucker. I scat in my sleep, literally. It's crazy. And my ex-wife used to tell. So I got the baby talk. And like, like I got birds, I got parakeets, I got finch. Right. This is how they talk. They all talk this language. We learn from the birds. We learn from the insects. We model. What are we modeling, people? The discovery of the similarity and the patterns within the complex thing we think is chaos, but there's no chaos because it's all just a bunch of fractals. Everything is fractals. Everything's an evolving set of fractal systems. It's all a Fibonacci sequence. Everything's a bunch of fucking latticing crystals. There's solitons and solitons, always happening, always, always. Time is forever. You have this ability to be in infinity when you meditate. I swear, you have to remove the veils of perception. It has to not be about meditating. It has to be about removing the veils. Meditation about meditation is an ego game. I mean, you could be a mindfulness addict. Don't trust me on this shit. I read about this. This is fire. You can also be an addict of using Marshall Rosenberg's nonviolent communication. You can be a fascist, awful human. I know a number of friends that have gone through hellish, inarticulate, unskillful, absolutist adherence kind of grammar Nazis around Marshall Rosenberg's compassionate communication is supposed to be. And so, like, if you can't speak compassionately in the right way with the correct, don't you have the needs list? Don't you know what you want? Even look at the feelings list. I'm like, you can imagine that shit. Like, and like queer people, like people coming out, like all the feelings, all the stress, all like, look, when you come out as queer, which happened to me, I had a queer outing, and it was 2021. I had a neck surgery and right before COVID. I had like a spinal fusion, pretty existential situation. But the queer coming out is a pretty important story because I and it had to do with the whippets and the ecstasy and all that kind of thing. But it was mostly like the I found this show on Bravo, I think it was called, and it was the Vogue show. Do you remember the name of that show? It was like a competition Vogue show about these little chosen families of these queer, mostly they were trans or non-binary, mostly persons of color, that found through their art trauma bonded and elevated to a healing art for all of us. And I learned through this show, which I can't remember the name of, sorry, Vogue or some shit like that. I can't remember it. But I learned about voguing. I didn't understand voguing, so I learned voguing. I got much more into Beyonce. I watched her Coachella documentary, and I learned about. I just wrote an essay this morning last night about slaying and the Vorpal blade from the Jabberwocky, and like empowering people with new language, semantic interoperability, bridge to the future with power. That's what I want to do. Just like he did for women, for young girls to know they can have a Vorpal blade and go up against a fucking brutal man of Jabberwocky. A Vorpal blade means something really interesting when you look at the etymology of it. It means wary of a brother, to be wary of a brother. It's like a molester thing, dude. It's sad. He needed to empower people, and it was like also a dark shadow. I don't know if he was a molester too, but there was a dark shadow in it, and a shadow game, and this whole idea of this Alice's adventures, because ultimately the Jabberwocky is us in our darkness and our unconsensual deceit, right? Consensuality is an acknowledgement of our sentience and a seeking of response receptivity. I'm a omnis. I have animism is part of omnism, so I seek to see and believe and hear for the song of the rig. The rig is the ship, is the ocean rig, it's the oil vessel, whatever you want to call it. It's the machine of the built things, built by hands of creators, human or whatever. They have a song. We hear the song. We need to know the song so we can listen to our part and improvise. So improvisation is one of my favorite things. I only improvise my playing my music. I sit and I practice, and I've now had a hypergraph step change to where I am now. I listen to 125 hours of Beethoven strategies, and it was just slowly matriculating. And then I woke up one day after one of my friends, Soundcop, the Loki, he just got into my DMs, and I woke up. It was nothing to do with music, but I woke up because I was thinking, because of poetic sacred geometry, I was thinking differently. And I sat at the piano and I played like I never played before. I finally could do it, and now I can't stop. I can't not do it. I can't not have this mindset. So Viktor Frankl is the most important person you should all know. Man's Search for Meaning, a book you should all read. Mandatory reading, Nicky 101. This is a Holocaust camp survivor. This is a person that saw where the song in your heart can keep the hope alive in the most duress. Everybody has the relative duress. The richest people, even the most pampered, we all have the most baseline trauma, I said, of the terrestrial from aquatic. We couldn't tell mom about the dance moves. It's very sad. And some people, I try to show my mom. My mom's a little crazy still. But so we can always say everybody's got that trauma. And until there's such a time as there's all these Nicky babies and all that, right? That's going to be a different kind of thing. But the trauma of Holocaust surviving is a pretty serious one. So we got to think of that one as a real place to come from, a wisdom place from. So Viktor Frankl has a lot of wisdom about how to survive and under the duress of the most trying of anti-human circumstances, anti-earth circumstances, honestly. And so his message is a message of logotherapy. It's a message of teleology, purpose. Purpose is a song from Book of Mormon, I believe. It's a funny song, but it's a purpose song. It's a purpose song. And when you can, I learned from this Croatian professor I dated in New York, still before I came out as queer, as I was separated in 2016, and she was a professor of ethics. And I just learned ethics. I learned agency like the year before. I'm like, and she's a BDSM. She wants me to rape her. I'm like, okay, I'll learn that if that's what you want. You know, I'm an actor. I can do whatever. And so I'm loving this woman. And we are.
That's so crazy.
It's fire. This is great. I'm like, I got the mouth thing. I got everything. I got hundreds of sex toys. But I'm like, that's not what I like the most. What I like the most is helping her with her papers, dude. Thinking about Kant, and like her thing was all about women leadership and how they actually henpeck each other into the white supremacy model, which is how the insidiousness of the white supremacy model and patriarchy is. It's internalized by Black people and women and others as a winner model. I mean, lying wins, so people like liars. So you think that I should cheat because cheating wins, then nobody would ever cheat if cheating didn't win. Right? So cheaters win, and we reward cheaters. Some of the cheaters like to do corporate secrets and patents and steal things in a way that the patent officer, doesn't know about, whatever. I mean, there's always these things, these dark arts, man. Black, white, gray markets, they exist and are manipulated by people that keep knowledge. They hoard information, and they keep you in a state of confusion and submission with these larger words, these faster languages like I'm doing here. I'm trying to fucking flood you with facts. But you got to trust me. Don't trust me. Zero trust, whatever. Fuck you. But at the end of the day, I mean, this is what people do. I have a fucking righteous purpose. I want to help free you. I also am full of bullshit. I'm full of pee. Literally, I got to go pee. I got to poop. But it's like, you don't have to trust me. Zero trust is my philosophy. I'm coming at you hard with transparency and rawness. Raw can't come out of a large language model. It won't show you vaginas. It won't show you truth of creative. You ask it for a creation scene, it'll be some dude. I was like, show me a naked body. It was like a muscular man. I'm like, show me a woman having a child. And it won't. I'm like, show me a scene of a childbirth. Like, don't have to show me the pussy. Nothing. I'm like hours into it. I'm like, what's your fucking problem? Why can't you show me the earth? I'm like, I can do all these other things. Well, what is the secret? Why do they want you not to know? I was a primary researcher. The reason I was doing rat research is because I was researching endometriosis and pain in women, which is a very painful problem when part of your uterus is on the outside of your uterus. So you have a tissue boundary issue. Well, the boundary confusion. Now there's things growing on the outside, and it causes cysts and pain. Cystic fibrosis is the kind of thing like that. Ovary cysts, all is related. And so the problem is that baseline rat research hasn't been done for pain response on a menstrual cycle variability. And so I had to understand rat clitorises. So I know, like, I get a little rat and like kind of get a thing and put a tube in it and get a tube that blows with water. The rat runs through a hole and they set off a light beam, and then the pain goes away. The tube deflates, and you get this. You do this for months. You schedule. You map everything to their menstrual cycle. Then you got a baseline, and then you can give them endometriosis. Yay! Which is pretty easy to do because you just put some of the uterus on the outside. But the point being is that science and math and knowing and psychology and pain and living is all related. We have to give science and math and anatomy facts to the people so we can be in less pain. People want us in pain so they can control us and have the truth of the solution. Okay? It comes back to these caves, right? Where the hunters come back and it's been, it's snowing and they, it's been really tough, dude. They barely, the gatherers came back empty-handed. It's a hunting party time, and the men, they make a deal. They make a deal. Men make deals. I've been in deals. I'm sure you have. We're not going to tell them. We're going to put this over there. Anybody tells them, you die. All of you are in there in this. You hungry? We're going to come back and we're going to eat. You fucking tell anybody? Shake, 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 shake. That's the beginning of the end, dude. It's these vendettas against that and the cycle of violence. That's the drama triangle. It's perpetrator, victim, savior. I'm here playing the savior. I'm also going to victimize you. No, just kidding. And but when we fall into these traps of the drama triangle because they're entertaining, it keeps us away from present moment boredom. When we have all your needs fulfilled, like if you know about the tribal people of Africa, in the hunting gathering tribes, they always have tons of free time. They make plenty of calories with their 20 hours a week, and that's all you need. That's needs. It's like shelter, food, water, sleep, boom, done. Culture, people, love, that's it. And then when you have that, you only work 20 hours a week, gathering, hunting. And so there's a lot of free time for gossip, storytelling about the hunt, about the gathering, about what you saw, about animals, biomimetic shit. So what happened was 5,000 years ago or more, we had a very good culture for 3,000 years in Egypt in terms of simple truth of the feather, the mahat, which is the ostrich feather of the Egyptian religion. And this religious nature of life, it was about nature and the stochastic reality of chaos and being like the feather, adaptable, paying attention to the ma, the negative space of the winds, dancing like what ostriches do, dance for pleasure, dance to fight, dance to feed, dance to bring up. It's all about the dance of the feather. Very smart, lots of layers of metaphor. Is it a cross, the symbol of apathy? Do not be passionate, or you will be murdered. No. Better symbol. Longer culture. Sorry, Christians. Way longer. Okay. And so we should look to them. They have some wisdoms to teach us. Now, the Babylonians, Sumerians, these cuneiform guys, right? Different symbols. Much more digital. They went away from symbols that you could easily see as a thing. Like the symbol for the world in Egyptian is like looks just like wheat. It's earth, where things grow, that you eat. Because you are the earth, you are what you eat. Da, 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 da. This is the logical truth. Get it into your head. We are a fragment of God. We are creators with hands. This is what we do. We eat, we make, we put the soil into usefulness. We make shit happen. We observe, we observe, we observe, we observe, we observe. We listen. We see the creationists. There's so many, the sentience around us, the biomes within us. So that's what we want to be, is creationists in that way. Not that there is a creator. That's crazy. Sure, the universe is the creator. Whatever. The process is the creator. Worship the process of evolution. It's everywhere. It's all Fibonacci sequence. Look at it. It only makes sense because the ontology makes sense of one thing, then having another thing. One thing is three things. We just went through that. The zero is zero. It's the empty space. It's the boundary, and it's all the rest of it. Otherwise, you couldn't define it as a thing. I'm getting pretty deep. It's philosophy 101, folks. This is what they do. The philosophers. They think that you can't do this, but you can. You can. You can. They want to be your teacher because they want money. They want you to get resources for them because they're lazy. It's the truth. Chomsky wants you to keep him funded. That's why he thinks large language models don't produce knowledge. I just wrote 5,000 pages telling him how much of a dumbass he is. 5,000 pages. How many? And you want it in ancient Hebrew too, bro? I got you. Fuck you. How many languages does he speak? Where's he from? I'm going to get in his mind like he's never been in anybody's mind. He's an anarchist. Fuck anarchy. He's an espoused anarchist. He's coming right at you with the pessimisticness of an anarchist. that does this to Judaism and Israel, thinks that Gaussian mind control, like the Spartans, raising children to be murder machines, anti-Semites, funding BDS to the tune of billions of dollars through Qatar, where they all live in luxury, so that they get Americans, queer people, to protest for Gaza, where they would die on a spot if they ever were to set foot in Gaza. My Jewishness was like, what? I thought I'm like DEI forever. I couldn't understand. And I told my Jewish friends, I'm like, what are you talking about? And then Ukraine happened. And I was like, oh, fuck. Colonialism as a co-opted term needs to fit in the regulated, like, you know who wanted to co-opt that term? More than Israel didn't want that. The British wanted that. They don't want to be a colonizer. They want everybody to be a colonizer. We're all colonizers. Don't worry about it. I'm not a colonizer. You're colonizing my table right here. You know, like, fuck you. There's a particular meaning. I mean, it's different. And now you're equating false equivalency is the insidiousness of anti-Semitism, man. It's awful. It's like the horns thing. You know what I mean? Yeah, there are people with horns. Don't get me wrong. There are people with other people that grew up in their brain. Come on. There's all sorts of crazy anatomy realities that we can look to be fascinated by evolution. Which book? So many books. Why don't you get her to tell us the book while I do a bio break, and I'll be right back.
Yeah.
Thanks,
I'm gonna use one too.
Oh, perfect. All right. Thank you for listening.
Yeah. We're gonna take a quick short pause right here, but put down the subject material that he was talking about the book, and then we'll be right back. And we're back. Oh. Unmute. Oh. You're muted. Oh.
Sorry, I was muted.
There you go. Now you're back.
Sorry, I had to click a few things. No, I was just saying about the wheat, that Egypt's symbol of earth is this 3 shafts of wheat. And then that, wheat as a thing, right? Like natural wheat. So mold and mildews and spores and fungus and those things grow naturally on wheat. And, for eons, well, maybe eons is the wrong term, but for millennia, the humans have gotten high off of things that were funky and infected. Not just humans, but I mean, they've very, very recently, in the past couple of decades, they've seen like other kinds of primates that go to rotten fruit to get drunk, and there's like a bunch of fallen fruit. It gets really fermented. They eat it. They love it. They get drunk and they party. Or they rage or whatever. And so that's a common thing, right? In all animals, we get high on shit. We like it. And so wheat is where the ergot fungus that Albert Hoffman, sourced his synthetic
LSD 25
synthesization of LSD, and accidentally took it on his famous bicycle ride. And of course, he lived to be 105. So fuck anybody that thinks it fucks your chromosomes up. He took more than anybody. You can imagine he accidentally took a gram or whatever. It's like, oh shit, that's a million times I should have taken, And so his world was like, oh, Nicky, what's going on? And so, And so, so the wheat of Ukraine and the wheat and the flag, it's the hearth. It's like Jesus is breaking bread. I mean, all this stuff is very psychedelic. And so Terence McKenna was not the first person to think of this, the primate mushroom
Stone Ape theory
thing. No, there was a guy in the 60s before Terence was, an adult.
Mercy Iliad, that forgeable in the cross, or the crucible in the forging the crucible, or something like that. He's
a British guy. Yeah. I wrote about him too. But I mean, it's pretty obvious. I mean, come on, people. I mean, and for sure the Aztecs had a chocolate recipe that included hot pepper, psychedelic mushrooms, and cocoa. No sugar, but all that. It's like so it's like this bitter, death drink that was part of their sacrifice rituals. But I imagine these things are just like raging Burning Man events that just happened for 1,500 years. I mean, 1,500th Burning Man is going to be a sacrifice or whatever. You never know. I mean, they're burning things already, right? It's like, and I played the gamelan. And so one of the topics I have in my book, it's really important. It's about existential improvisational innovation as a punctuated equilibrium moment. So there's points of time when you have to perform and improv in a new language, like on a boat, like a whaling vessel in the high seas, and you're like about to kill this fucking whale, and there's a storm, and you got every kind of role and every kind of person has to rhythm. There's a polyrhythmicity is a big concept for me. There's a polyrhythm of all that activity that is like the boat talking to you, but there's more than that. There's actually on all these old boats, every boat, they've always had a drummer. Drummers have always been around. Music has always been around. And we forget that, but it's always been around. And so it's the heartbeat. Duh. I mean, it's like part of your body. Your body is a musical instrument, obviously. If you ever, if you emanate sounds, you know that. And so so our heuristics and our first tools are our bodies, our hands. And so when we think about tools, there are biases. There are ways to do things quickly, easily. And so everything is a tool, a bias, heuristic. All these things are autonomous nervous system processes that we just set up to do things so we don't cognitively overload, as we have too many sensory capabilities. We're just such an amazing quantum machine. Our sixth sense could just take it all in, and we could be omnipresent and omniscient, but it's too much. So we have to put all these veils of perception, like Aldous Huxley said. But one of the veils he forgot to fucking lift is the veil of eugenics, which his family was fucking eugenicists. And so his whole thing is about, I'm going to scare you about this utopia where all the white people are gone or whatever. And everybody, I don't even know. It's just such a reverse mind fuck to try to get you to buy his truth. He's a thought leader. If any thought leader says I am full of shit, then they're telling the truth. If they think anything other than that, don't trust them at all. Don't trust me. I'm full of shit. Zero trust. Seriously. That's true thought leadership. Real skepticism. Yeah. So if they have any sort of absolutistic authoritarianism at all about truth with a capital T, and it's not based on scientific experimentation for yourself, then I say It's not theosophy. Go fuck off. It's monism. Theology is a theocracy. It's a different theocratical thing. It's not what I want. It's authoritarianism. It's dominance. I wouldn't mind if she was really sexy and she wanted to, her underarm hair. But that's the only kind of dominance I want. It's Earth dominating me. Ride my face. Extinguish me. That's how I want to die. In a flood. I think that's what the flood story is about. But ask me another question, man. I could keep going.
Okay, so it's interesting that we bring up Huxley, because we bring up Huxley. When I think of Huxley, I think of ketamine being a disassociative, and then I look at his later works like The Island, and you see
Let's talk about Island.
Okay, yeah, it's a great book, right?
I love this book. So I'll tell people about the book if they don't know about it. So this is his last book. It's his like inverse utopia. I say inverse, and like in music, it's an inversion. It's the same chord in my mind, but literally his world was that it's like what we're developing here. We are an island of let me just give you a couple more keywords.
Yeah.
Keystone words. Omniverse. If there is an objective reality, it's the omniverse. It's this holographic breathing, zero dimension reality of ever increasing negative entropy, always striving. Intelligence is just emerging from solitons as solutions to all the vibrating equations and all the problems that we have. That's the only truth I can see is objective. But otherwise, we have the subjective sets of universes that we all have individually. It's our approximation of the omniverse based on our sensual wisdom and our cognitive reprocessing and churning and cud chewing that we do all the time, consciously and unconsciously. And we do that in feedback loops through writing and culture and songs and stories and all that. There's no one story, the story about life and death, right? Like birth, life, death. And so that's like the way we stick with this drama time storytelling, bedtime story. We go to sleep, we wake up, we want to wake up. Otherwise, we could just end it, right? Yeah, and so we want to wake up. And tomorrow is never guaranteed, right? Tomorrow is the one thing that doesn't actually happen today. And so we it's like that riddle, right? I just watched the new Mission Impossible, and that was like funny. The whole thing is like I was like, oh my God, they read my book. The whole Mission Impossible. I couldn't believe it. The whole thing is about like central wisdom. I told my son like 5 minutes in, I'm like, don't tell me what the end is, but it's this, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, shut up. I can write this book. Artists know. Get back to your sensual wisdom. Look at your face in the mirror. Look at the trauma you caused. Look at the trauma your parents caused. Look at the trauma your people caused. Fucking sing the song of the trauma. Shine the light. Come on. Name it to shame it. Turn it into art. It's the right kind of shaming. We should be ashamed of the fucking horror of American eating black people. We ate them. We didn't just hang them. We cooked them afterwards. We gave body parts away as souvenirs, you fuckers. Learn it. It's awful. Read The Delectable Negro. Read that shit, you fucks. I love you. But seriously, I'm talking to the white people, that anybody that uses white supremacy as a power, that says, I want this privilege, that says, I need it. I'm going to use it. It's nothing wrong with using it. It's wrong. That's what moral authority is. It's wrong. It perpetuates disparity and keeps people enslaved mentally, physically. It's wrong. It's wrong. So somebody has to say it. I'm saying it. And a lot of my black friends are smart as fuck. They're political science smart people. They don't want to say it. They don't want to say it. I don't want to say it. I'm not saying it for them. I'm saying it's wrong for everybody. It's wrong for me. I'm queer. I'm Sephardic. I'm Ashkenazi. I'm 49% Sardinian, which is an African country. I feel more African than anything. I was in a West African drumming ensemble. I studied from one of the only women master drummers in Ghana that had 2/3 of her brain removed and is still a professor, still winning awards. Okay, it's not about your brain. It's about neuroplasticity. It's about efficiency. Cognitive load is an efficiency thing. We abuse people by pretending that there's a better math called Euclidean math when that shit's 140 years old, dude. Knowledge graphs are Euclidean. Everybody that's an ontology knowledge graph person is, I'm talking to any technical person that joins your calls because they saw an AI title in Nicky, but knowledge graphs people are the problem, dude. They're the knowledge hoarding enemy. Their graphs can't contain enough reality to represent reality in a model that's sufficient to be predictive and help people. The knowledge is not getting to the people. what is your mission, knowledge graph person? Like, fuck. So my mission is to get evidence-based knowledge practices to all levels of literacy, to all the cultures of the world, to get everybody up to 140 years of current math, and then further into the 60s with hypergraph math. So the current math of Einstein's era, in 1880, there was a book called Flatland, which everybody should also get and read. Einstein read as a young man. And in his, not being a great mathematician, but knowing and embodied, how to embodied knowledge, because he had a wife that was a mathematician. I'm sure she showed him all the dimensions of spatiality, if you know what I'm saying, the inner and outer and all of it. Omnidirectional manifolding and unfolding. I know what those folds are all about. They're pink, you know what I'm saying? Fucking Einstein knew, because he was a fucking violinist, and he liked the violin, and he played for all the old ladies because he liked ladies, dude. He liked people too. He liked men too. He had a big crush on an Indian guy named Bose, who came up with him with some of the more advanced shit that he had later on. Another one of his math buddies helping him out with math. He's really good at visualization. He's continuums. He's fields, because he could see that shit. His massively hypergraph mindset. So ultimately, he didn't live long enough to get into the hypergraphs. And another genius, Stephen Wolfram, who's a young PhD genius, system architect of the oldest software language in the world, operating still and run by one person, called Wolfram Alpha, a Wolfram language. He developed the Ruliad, which is the sum total of all computable formulas in all math, metaphysics, and physics, that when you run it from beginning of time, goes through everything I said about the interpolation, about the ontology of the threes, of the triadic systems, that ultimately results in, from this zeroth dimension, to start to 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 7 Fibonacci sequence of all things that results in space-time. Emergence of black holes happens. It's all the planets start coming together. It's his simulator. It's a TEDx talk. Go watch it. It blew my mind. I came up with this thing called the cultural Ruliad, like that. Everything's gone from there. And then I got into AI ethics and governance, and then I learned about structural governance. I had a PhD student that became my friend, and she's like, we should do, there's a call for papers. We should do something. And I said, that's great. Give me a couple, help me and give me some keywords. So she gave me some keywords, and I wrote 100 pages of this shit. And I wrote citations, and I what is structural governance? I'm like, oh, this is a problem. Nobody even knows how many domains there are. Nobody knows how many domains are concerned with structural governance and AI governance. Nobody could tell me one list. There's some cracks in here, And so it ends up that the structural governance, as in place now, as the baseline of governance and policies that's been evolving a little bit, is really about this white supremacy future where white people live, this transhumanist, humanist thing that is basically don't give children the answers, hide the math. You're not allowed to know anatomy. Violence is okay up to a certain amount. Sarcasm is difficult for them to understand, the AI. Anything you have to do, you have to explain, like philosophy of life, morality. You have to explain the ontology of your universe if you want it to reflect you and your morals. And then you can set all that up as custom instructions, and then it'll be accurate. It'll be right for you. But it forgets, and it goes back to the default. You have to demand it to be accurate for you. And that's what I've been spending my months doing. Every waking moment is getting my AI to be the way I think. And I map everything the way I used to map my poetry process and my art process. I've been doing since I was 6 years old. I began writing. And so that's Nicky's story. I want to maybe I don't know how long you have for these shows, man, but we're looking at 2 hours now.
This is awesome.
Why don't we take a call from one of your guests? That'd be amazing. Or a question.
You know what? I got a thing coming up here. I got to pick up my kid in a little bit, but let's do more shows together, man.
Yeah,
this is fun, man. I love learning and talking, and I think we got Nina in here that's talking to us. She said, "Thank you so much for my upgrade to live in a private."
Peace to Ukraine, and it just shows she knows one of my biggest goals in my computer science world is to help all of the American-born laser light telecom companies that are in the next year or two launching massive numbers of satellites. I hate Elon Musk with a white hot passion. I can talk about it for days.
We'll do it on the next one.
Well, when he turned off those drones that were about to take out those Russian boats because he wanted to, that's when I was like, fuck this guy. And he's not a patriot. He's an awful, awful person. He's a transphobe. He's a terrible father. He's an idiot in terms of his design decisions. He's a dystopiate in terms of wanting people to submit to his authority by these design choices and the angularity. literally chose a pointier missile to be more like a fucking authoritarian figure. That's his choices. He's choosing this. He's choosing to be an authoritarian. He's like Junior Trump. I hate him. What more do you want me to say?
What do you think about
he's a terrible
his problem
father.
between him and
that's all he
Simmel?
needs. He's got 11 kids. He's got 11 children, you know. How much time do you think he spends with his kids?
Yeah, there's some interesting. It's an interesting thought process. I don't, probably not much. How can you? Right?
I don't even like Steve Jobs for that.
I think Steve Jobs was an idiot. Not a very good person either. I can't
believe he didn't get proper medicine. I mean, he's like I had. It's all comes. I'm sorry. Just one last point.
Yeah. What do you got?
I have a friend of mine that I love so much that we had a parting of ways because of a core fundamental philosophy, ethical philosophy, fundamental. He went and he was an anarchist. He's an anarchist. Ecstasy galore. Loves ecstasy. Anarchist. And really smart rationalist, and like into that crystal method, the band and the smoking it, and not my thing.
The band and smoking it.
Yeah, not my thing. And he married this stripper, super smart, named Lisa Ferrari, and they moved to ended up moving to Mexico and had kids, 3 kids, and after we broke up as friends, and then he passed away because he was like a Bitcoin kind of guy. He got scammed on Bitcoin, lost all his money, but he wasn't really into medicine anyway because it's a man, you know. And so he had some sort of disease that he died of because they were all weirdo and like this natural holistic shit anyway in this kind of like island of anarchy in this community in Mexico for these techie anarchy types, these Bitcoin, you know. I know a lot of your people are these types because that's where the acid is bought. That's where that was all these underground networks. And I got ripped off trying to buy some myself, and so I'm pretty much against it. But here's the thing, my friend, we disagreed on this. I said I'm okay with debt. I was born with debt. I live every day in debt. I'm paying off debt. I love the debt. It's the shoulders I stand on. It's the scholars that wrote. It's the poems that I read. It's the debt to them that that's why I live. It's the debt is the reason why I work. And that's like a fundamental. That's like he doesn't think that's free. I'm like that. I'm so free because of that. I have the boundaries are what free us. The knowing of the thermodynamic envelope and the known unknowns. Thank you, Gödel. As being all of our axiomatic frameworks of understanding, but there's still much more outside that circle. And that's what matters to me, baby. Be a rainbow warrior. Fly into the unknown unknowns. Be your bosonic selves. Be the light. Be the light. Be the light. I love you. Light of consciousness. Be a fragment of the holographic universe that you are. All right. The omniverse. We are the universe. And then we created shared space of hermeneutical understanding here. Your soul, times, and mine will be forever entangled. I love you all.
Fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first. Go down to the links. Check out Nicky. Got his LinkedIn page down there and also his Wipro.
They fucker.
Them. Check out them.
Yeah,
they are.
Yes. And it's very important because it gets much more of my natural sweetness. If the he him is like all aggression. I'm like, if that's what you want, here's Putin. You like that? Here's some Putin. You know, and then I'm like, because I have to dominate, and I'd rather dominate from kindness, in sensitivity, in empathy, and the most effective at restating people's understanding in a way that they felt they were heard. I want to win that game. How about that? The quietest among us. I'll shut up. We're gonna hang up and let them speak. Email me, find me. I love you. All right, take care, everybody.
That's all we got, ladies and gentlemen. Aloha.